Right. Hi, everybody. We will get started just momentarily. Give everybody just a chance to join real quick. We'll give it just 1 minute and then we will go ahead and get started. Right. All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump in. So thank you, everybody who has joined today's webinar for taking the time. We're really excited to talk more in depth about this new solution, Visual Camera Health. You will also hear us refer to this as VCH, but we're also excited about our partnership with Actuate. So my name is Erin Bullard. I'm the Director of Partner Relations here at Immix, and I manage our technology and integration partnerships. So I've had the pleasure of working with Actuate as we've developed some different solutions with them, and we're really excited about this one in particular. Quick housekeeping before we jump into the presentation itself. I do have a couple of folks that are assisting in the background. They may jump in periodically to answer some of your questions. If you do hear a voice or you see or hear from them, don't be alarmed. We've got Jason Caldwell, our Director of Guard Force Accounts. And then we also have Tina Similaris, our Vice President of Global Client Experience, who are going to help us out along the way. So you should just, again, quick lay of the land. You should have a section to submit your questions. Please feel free to submit those as we go about the session. If there's anything that Jason and Tina can address as we go, they certainly will try and answer those. Otherwise, we will save the Q&A for the very end. We do also have some poll questions throughout. Would love to get some of your input. So please pay attention, and we really want to have your participation in this. If there is anything that you feel like you'd like to comment, there should also be a chat section, and you can put any of those comments in there. And then we do also have a resource available for you guys. So if you see the resources section, there is a handout that you guys should be able to download. If we do wrap up early, fantastic. But if we do go over our allotted time and there's any outstanding questions, we will do our best to follow up with each of you guys individually and make sure that we can address all of that. So with all of that, let's go ahead and get started. So a quick agenda of what we're going to cover. We'll do some introductions. I'll give a brief overview of Immix for anybody who might not be familiar. Brian's going to go through the Actuate side after we do our introductions. And then we're going to talk about the operational challenge of why we developed VCH before we really get into an overview of what it is, what it delivers, and of course go through some of the value that it's going to provide to the various audiences and stakeholders that might be associated with monitoring and the entire process. And then we're going to have some videos available for you guys. So we're going to do a quick walkthrough of what this solution looks like in Immix. And then we will jump into the Q&A. So we'll try and keep it pretty straightforward and keep things moving. So for introductions, anybody that I have not met or worked with, like I said, my name is Erin Bullard. I'm the Director of Partner Relations. And just a quick background on me so you guys understand a little bit of where I come from. I was actually an Immix customer before I joined the Immix team. So I was with Securitas. And I made my way up the ranks, first supporting the different regions in their technology sales, kind of cutting my teeth there, working on proposals and integrated guarding, and then overseeing more of the marketing around remote guarding specifically before actually taking charge of the remote guarding operations of the Securitas SOC itself and their remote guarding services. So I have had that firsthand experience of both making and receiving those phone calls when there's a camera that's offline and the services might not be able to be provided, and you might miss a critical incident because of that. So I get to draw from some of that experience to develop some of our meaningful solutions with our partners that Immix customers can really take and utilize as they curate their different service offerings and go to market with that, which, as our technology partner, brings me to our guest today. So I am pleased to introduce Brian Karras from the Actuate team, and I will let Brian deliver his background, a little bit of insight on his role at Actuate.
Cool. Thanks, Aaron, and thanks for having us. We've been looking forward to this. So, yeah, I'm Brian Karras. Like Aaron, I've worked with Immix for a long time, always on the supplier side as an AI company. I've been in this space with different analytics companies for close to 18 years now, working in this video analytics, remote guarding space, and most recently with Actuate, which has definitely been the largest and fastest growing and most exciting company for me in the space. And I've been looking forward to the rollout of VCH, as you can all imagine. We work on this for many months in the background before we can publicize it and talk about it. So there's been a lot leading up to this, and I can say camera health monitoring, VCH. This has been like probably one of the top requests I've received over the years at other companies when I'm working with Immix partners, and Aaron and I will get into that as we go through the webinar here. So yeah, let's get started.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. So, like I mentioned, for anybody who's not familiar with Immix, Immix is a software platform designed for the central station and monitoring center market, and really any company that is looking to provide and deliver monitoring services, ranging from alarm monitoring in the traditional sense, with video verification, interactive monitoring, and really getting more into the more advanced services, remote guarding, anything more bespoke like remote SOC as a service. So that's really where we fill the market. And we do work to integrate a wide range of security products into that single operator interface, which does create this single pane of glass for the monitoring center. And that's really so that you can manage any security related event, anything that might have a safety component to it. And that single pane of glass creates that consistent user experience for operators as well as for other stakeholders, your end user who might be engaging or interacting with your company with the different services that you provide, are looking for those reports and that consistency in what services are being provided. So not only does that then help to reduce training costs, but it also drives overall operational efficiency. And that's really the goal here, and we'll touch on that a lot more. But our integration library does consist of over 500 products, and we are all about giving you the choice of what you want to use without having any additional hardware or additional requirements. And this is a solution that really fits into that. And while we've largely been focused on video, we also serve as I'll say an aggregator for other types of technologies. So that does include access control, GPS, dispatch systems, lone worker solutions, other automation systems, and then of course more advanced tools like situational awareness and AI that we're seeing a big rise in the last few years. So that's really what Immix is and what we do, and providing that ecosystem of tools available for your monitoring solutions. And Brian, I'll let you touch on Actuate and where you guys come from and what you do.
Perfect. Thank you. And so, yeah, a little bit of background here. So, actually, we are a AI company. Right now, it's cloud AI. Everything is done in the cloud. So, we do a lot in the remote monitoring space. One application of our technology is sometimes called video spam filter, where we can take events from other cameras and NVRs and VMS systems, run them through our cloud AI, and spit out only the most relevant events, the ones that have bona fide, people or vehicles or loitering or crowds or whatever you told the system to look for in the video. So that helps to cut down on the noise and the overhead and the fatigue of the operators. So usually when there's any kind of AI company in this space, I think every AI company when they talk about themselves, puts up a video of people with boxes around them. And so I didn't want to do that because we've all seen videos of people with boxes around them. And I don't think that really communicates accurately, everything, at least for Actuate, everything that we're about. We're in over 80 monitoring centers globally. We're deployed at over 21,000 customer sites, and these numbers continually go up day by day, week by week, month by month. We support pretty much every camera and or NVR and VMS brand on the market through either direct integrations or just support for generic events via RTSP or SMTP. And we have 148%, or I think it's even gone up a tick now, net camera retention. So basically, we get a lot of customers that switch to Actuate. Customers don't really switch away from Actuate. Once they get on our platform and they see the power and the capabilities and what we can do, it's become a very, very popular platform. And this is why I want to put these numbers up instead of the video with boxes on it, because I think this helps communicate the scale of what Actuate and the team has achieved and how many people rely on us, just like Immix and their partnerships, that we're powering a lot of sites, enabling dozens of professional monitoring centers, and by extension, helping keep all these properties safe and secured and cost effectively monitored.
They're impressive numbers, that's for sure. So as
And
far as kind
so,
of the different solutions, I was going to say some of the solutions that we've built with the Actuate team, this almost is a bit of a roadmap here. Brian, you were talking about what was it, the AI filter, a little bit of that
mhm,
scrubber,
right.
getting rid of some of those nuisance alarms, and that's exactly what AI Link was built to do, and kind of where it started. And so that was the beginning of, I think, really the partnership in a bigger sense with the Actuate
Mhm,
team. And then, of course, today we're going to be touching on visual camera health, which is really about the integrity of the camera stream, specifically as it comes into Immix and how it's going to appear to the operator. But then, of course, in the future, I'm sure several of you guys have seen press releases that we've put out that we are building Actuate into the auto patrol solution. And that is, similar to VCH. VCH is kind of a function of that in a much simpler way, but auto patrol doing a lot more with additional threats, additional anomalies that can be detected through a video stream. So just, broadly speaking, some of the things that we are doing and building Actuate, kind of embedding you guys more into that
mhm,
ecosystem of tools that I was talking about.
yeah.
And with that, we'll touch on the operational challenge.
All right. I'll take this one. So the video monitoring is great, obviously, when everything works properly and you've got a system that's, monitoring the site and accurately detecting what's going on, sending real-time alerts, and of course we've all seen the examples and talked about live audio talk down or verified dispatch and things like that. But all of video monitoring really only can work when the cameras are working. And when you're monitoring, thousands of sites and tens of thousands of cameras, it's not practical to go back to every camera and make sure it's online, make sure it's got good images, make sure that the camera itself is functional. So you can have sites that aren't sending any events, and of course it's really impractical for the operators to know, is this lack of events because the site is safe and secure and nothing is happening? Or is this lack of events because something has prevented the camera from, seeing what's going on? Is the camera blurred, or is there a network infrastructure problem? And that's been the operational challenge. Like I said earlier, that I think this is like a request that Aaron and I have both heard from our customers over the years, that the event generation, the event handling, the logging of what the operator did with that event have been very nicely, covered and optimized through these platforms. But now we want to make sure that we're not missing events because of an infrastructure issue. So I think if you've been in this business for any length of time, if you haven't used visual camera health or an application like this, you probably inevitably have the scenario where a customer calls you angry because there was an event that was missed, and then you go back and start investigating as the operator, as a central station, or even the integrator. Why was this event missed? Why didn't this organization that we're paying for monitoring receive it and respond? And then you realize that the reason was because a camera was moved, either maliciously or sometimes inadvertently. A cleaning crew or landscaping crews, or all kinds of things, sometimes bump cameras, or cameras have gone out of focus, or there was a network issue. There was something that prevented that camera from getting events through to the operator. And of course, when that happens, everyone's kind of left looking bad. The customer is understandably, very angry about the fact that the incident was missed, especially when they're paying for that coverage. Um, and many times when I've been involved in digging into these, a high percentage of the time, really the reason for the miss can be attributed back to something that was a customer's responsibility or under their control. And of course, they're not monitoring, they're not watching things. And that's where, again, I've been really excited about being able to bring this visual camera health to market through Immix, because it lets us kind of close what I think was one of those last gaps in providing integrity and assurance of monitoring, and letting everyone sleep easily at night knowing that their system, you know, is being watched over and is protected. And if something happens, it's going to be caught.
Brian, customers love hearing when it ultimately is maybe on their end to fix and it was something that they missed. But I mean, it really does undermine the trust. And we put some of these things on here, by no means for us to read through. But I think, the value of this service is all about what have I done for you lately, and making sure that
Mhm.
when there is an incident that you're capturing that value of what your services do, because there's a lot that can be done in the background, a lot of events that you guys are managing that might seem fairly normal. But when you stop
Mhm.
receiving those events, I mean, there's so much going on in a monitoring center that it's nearly impossible to pick out some of those things. And
Mhm.
especially before there were tools like AI, having to rely on a person to notice those things, when you have volume and scale of sites and devices, it's just impossible to be able to pick up all of those things. And I think one of the worst sentences to hear is, well, you're connected to the cameras. You didn't notice that it was offline.
Right.
And, again, it's the blurring of the lines here. I think the point that I want to make with that is that there is sometimes a difference site by site on who is responsible for sending out or managing a service technician, who is responsible for getting the system back up and running. And a lot of times there is that kind of operator bias of, oh, well, that
Mhm.
camera's been offline for months. So, why did I feel that that was suspicious here? And
Mhm.
building a tool into this that does help to reinforce that consistency and help to unblur those lines of communication and responsibility. That's really part of what this delivers and part of the gap that it's helping to solve. So I think there are several aspects to this challenge that VCH is helping to fill in, for the various stakeholders, not just for the monitoring center, which is, of course, where I really relate to, but of course, further downstream as well to the
Mhm.
end user. And with that, I think we have our first question for the audience. So if you guys can go ahead and vote on here. Um, if you guys have ever had that scenario that we just talked about where there was that camera offline, and it's only after that incident occurs and you get that call and you start looking through the footage, curious just to see what that breakdown looks like.
Yeah. So far the results are not too surprising. I think it's hard to be in this business for very long without having inadvertently come across this kind of scenario.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the not sure, there's just a couple of those on here. And again, I think that is understandable where sometimes you're not sure if it's your responsibility, and maybe it was offline, or maybe it was another issue that came about
Yep,
because there are a ton
absolutely.
of variables that impact the ability to receive these incidents. Right. It looks like things have leveled out if we want to go ahead and close out that poll. Perfect. So in terms of what VCH, again, visual camera health is delivering, it is providing this foundational layer for you guys, and it is an operational insurance policy. You'll hear us say that several times before the session is over, but it's making sure that things are functioning properly. And I want to add that variable within Immix, within your monitoring platform, because a lot of times it can be functional at the edge and it might be recording locally. All of that's fantastic. But if it's not making it all the way to your monitoring center where an operator can see it, then it's not going to be valuable for your monitoring. So what this is going to do is provide that uptime scene compliance, making sure that the scene is looking at what it should be looking at. It's going to reduce your operational risk. It is something that is easy to scale. It's easy to add on. We'll just graze over that towards the end, but you do get multiple daily checks as part of VCH, and you have the choice of whether or not you want to raise this to an operator. So if there is some criticality to these, or if it's something that you would prefer to manage more in the background, and be able to have those reports available, you do have that choice. So that is available in both aspects. And it is not something that you have to make that choice globally. You can make it site by site, camera by camera. And then it is applicable to any camera that you have connected within Immix. So whether it is something that really has a lot of active monitoring value currently, or if it's something that is even more just for the customer, this is a service that you can add on that, again, is simple but offers and delivers a lot of value to your customer. It doesn't necessarily have to be that detector. And then, of course, there's no additional hardware or IT requirements. If it's connected to Immix, it's something that you can then enable this for.
Yep. I think it's probably worth mentioning on that slide too, Aaron, because of the way this is integrated into Immix, there's no alternative to VCH. You can't achieve the same level of assurance with any kind of third-party product that claims to do the same thing. It's that tightly integrated capability that really makes it like super powerful and super easy to set up.
Absolutely. So in terms of the key capabilities, Brian, I'm going to let you cover this. This is more in the Actuate wheelhouse.
Sure. So there's two components from the part of the VCH stack that Actuate provides or powers here. So and these are kind of deeply intertwined, but there's the network integrity side and the scene integrity side. So on the network integrity side, we're looking at the connectivity and the stream quality. So basically checking for bandwidth, checking for throughput, checking for latency, checking for jitter, packets arriving out of order, all the things that would say, like in a scenario, the camera itself might be perfectly healthy, generating the best images in the world, but if your network can't carry those images from the camera all the way through to the Immix operator's screen because of some kind of network issue, we can detect and monitor for that and raise that as an event. Or the network may be perfectly fine and there's something wrong with the camera, the scene, anything like that. So we're also looking at the scene integrity and again checking both of these things. They're kind of deeply intertwined, and that gives you the ability to gives us the ability to notice anything that's causing the image to be degraded for any reason, but also to I think you see when we show like a little demo clip later, the issues that are causing the unhealthy camera are noted so that it starts to give you some pointers towards what direction to troubleshoot. If you're having network issues, especially like if the customer uses an outsourced IT or even has their own IT group, if we're telling you that there's network connectivity issues, you may want to raise that event with their IT team or their IT provider. If there's scene integrity issues, the scene is blurred or the camera's moved or things like that, or it looks jittery, then you maybe go a different path. You contact the integrator first, or again, it's going to vary on a case by case basis. But we're breaking these down individually, analyzing each of them. And when it comes to the scene integrity and what qualifies as a healthy or unhealthy scene, we analyze a number of perspectives, and there's AI provided there so that we can adapt to things like day mode versus night mode, or understanding that like in a large parking lot, vehicles will come and go. So at a pixel level, the parking lot might look different, but at a scene level, we can interpret that this is a parking lot and that it is in fact a healthy scene, even if there's a moderate degree of pixel change within the scene.
Absolutely. So in terms of how it works, configuration, like I was saying, is simple. You've got the cameras that are already coming into Immix. You go and you schedule these on. You essentially check the sites and the cameras that you want to enable for VCH, and it's going to enable kind of this third scheduled health check by default. And then once we've done that, on the actuate side, what Brian was just talking about in terms of learning that scene, establishing some of that baseline, as it starts to run those first initial health checks, it's going to be doing that. It's going to be compiling some of those reference images automatically. It's not something that you have to submit these reference images on your end. It's
Right.
something that it will do automatically. And these are, dynamic in nature so that they can account for those environmental changes. So like Brian was saying, time of day, any scene variations based on the type of site. So it's going to automatically learn that scene by default. And then from there, you've really got VCH up and running, whether or not you wanted it to go and actually be escalated to an operator, or if you wanted it on more of this silent logging aspect, it's going to be running these health checks 4 times per day per camera and analyzing the live stream of that device against those reference images that it's automatically compiled on the Actuate side. And so based on any of the workflows that you've established for your operators, you will triage those events from there. And then, of course, you have any of the operational response and the reporting, anything that you might want the operator to take action on. We've got scripts that are set up. You've got instant reports that can be sent out automatically through Immix. All of the tools that are available to you through the platform can be tied in with this. So again, it's really more comprehensive in nature than just adding this on as kind of an a la carte service. And it's something where those reports will be logged. You've got those events available, and any of the actions that your operators took will, of course, be logged as part of any of the events that they managed. And then I believe we actually have another poll question. Thank you. So how are you guys currently managing camera health? And so we've got, just to kind of walk through these, whether your operators are doing this manually. I know when I first started, I saw a lot of that where they're going in, they're checking the reference shot, difficulties on making sure that that reference shot was accurate and up to date.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh, And there, of course, are third-party technologies, but that can be done outside of Immix, and it can be difficult to tie in as part of a service. And then it might be something your customers are already doing.
Yeah.
Kind of
I've seen a couple of instances over the years. You mentioned the keeping if you do it manually or with a reference shot. I've seen scenarios where cameras have been changed out and the reference shot is from like a 720p camera from 4 years ago, and the new scene looks kind of like that, but technically nothing like it. And it's again, if for a couple hundred cameras, that might be a manageable process, but you start getting to real scale, and it just gets away from you so quick.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, honestly, and some of that consistency boils down to operator training, and sometimes trainers change as well, and what
Mhm.
they may have kind of been ingrained to look for, they might not be looking at the resolution. They might just say, okay, are these the same bounds of the scene that are
Mhm.
accurate for this camera? All right. Yeah, as you say, thank you. Looks like results were staying pretty even. So speaking of operators and training and any of where this would fit into your current service offering, um, I won't read all of this by any means, but these kind of align with one another. There's the different escalation options, and then there's more of the action that might be taken. Some of this could be taken by an operator, but likely may require additional stakeholders to become involved. And so, when there's internal parties and you have a team that can help to do additional review or some additional troubleshooting, then you have this tier one of, can we reboot something? Is there something we can reset because we have visibility to the NVR itself, or we have visibility to the VPN, and we can see that that's one of the reasons that is causing some sort of disconnect in the camera to not be streaming into Immix properly. If that's not the case, then likely you are going to be notifying the customer. And depending on this, your customer and how often they want to be informed of these things, that notification might be a consistent thing. But in terms of the intervention itself, you know, if they are the ones managing the system, if they're the ones managing any of the IT components, they might have to be the ones to jump on. And if this is a critical camera and it's something where you have to be monitoring that device, then you might have to jump to a tier four where you have to have some sort of contingency plan in place. But if the customer is not able to resolve it, then you kind of go to whoever is responsible for maintaining the system and generating some sort of service ticket, because there's going to be a field technician that has to go out to the site. And I think, a good piece of this, some of these examples are pretty pertinent. The camera needs to be repositioned, or you have a lens that needs to be cleaned.
Mhm.
Spider webs are a huge issue, unfortunately, for monitoring and
Yeah.
for cameras and surveillance. And so that could be something that you have to send out a technician because the cameras require some routine maintenance. Um, and then, of course, depending on what it is, you might have to implement some sort of contingency plan. And there could be things that are beyond the scope of even the customer or even, the system integrator. It could be weather related. It could be more of an ISP outage, things that are really beyond anyone's control. And so being able to have backup security, or informing the customer so that they can take proper action. There could be things that you want to do on your end in terms of the monitoring center as well. So just to be aware of, if you have certain services that are supposed to be provided on a routine basis, but they can't be. And this is something that maybe you pause those services for the time being. And again, it just creates a bit more visibility, a bit closer of a connection to your customer, which also creates more touch points for you to possibly curate more value, add more
Mhm.
services, this being one of those.
Yeah, I just want to add, I've seen organizations on both sides of this where they've done proactive monitoring around camera integrity, or where more often they haven't. And it's like when the customer discovers it before you do, you wind up in this very defensive position. And they're, when did it happen? How long has it been going on? Well, I want a credit for all the outage, and what are we paying you for? Or even if no one's sure quite what caused an outage or the issue, I've seen scenarios where sometimes the central station or the integrator that they have kind of like the best point of contact to the customer puts it off on them to sort of like figure out what caused the problem, where when you proactively can reach out to a customer and say, hey, this camera is down, we can't monitor it, we've done some proactive checks, it looks like this, or we've verified it's not our end, it's squarely on you. You're in a much better defensive position for your business to make it clear that you're not able to provide services for this camera until they rectify it. If you've got a good contract, that also means that they're not entitled to a credit or a refund. They have to supply a good working camera and network connection, and it just does so much for account retention and account growth when they become aware that you're not just responding to bad guys jumping fences, but you're helping ensure the integrity of their entire security system.
A fantastic point. You actually teed me up quite well for the next slide
Mm-hmm.
here, which is the human cost. And we talk about kind of the manual aspect, but there's a financial impact here as well as an operational impact. If you are having to do some of these in a more reactive approach, then you're looking at the wages, that hourly cost of your employee, any trainings. That's the direct cost, but there are so many indirect costs that go into this that are so hard to really account for fully. Trainings, certifications, uh, the supervision of your staff as well, the management team, time off, especially if you are having some call offs and every person then becomes a lot more critical. If they get pulled away for things that could have been done proactively, you're sacrificing a much higher margin service that could be provided and more value that could have been established with your customer. But then that's, of course, also somebody who's taking up equipment, taking up a workspace because they're just doing fairly low-hanging fruit types of services. Not to mention, just on the operational side, that risk of the inconsistency. I mean, Brian and I have outlined, I think, quite a few examples,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's training related, whether it's how they triage this, and how they're evaluating these that come into play. But that opportunity cost of what else your operators could be doing, I think that's a big piece of it. To Brian's point, when you were saying that, sometimes it can be time consuming to track down when this happened, why it happened, whose responsibility should it have been, to point this out. That takes a lot of time. And it very much can take a lot of time. And so doing this proactively, consistently, on a regular basis helps to shorten that window of time where if there is something that does happen, your evaluation time period for investigation is a lot quicker. It's a lot shorter to have to go back through and figure out, okay, what did happen? So I think part of this is shifting that from people to technology so that you can focus those people on things that are actually valuable for them to be doing. Again, I think in this industry, a lot of what operators, and again, with my background, the guarding world can be doing is commoditized, and there's a lot of turnover. And being able to instill more of a sense of value, of ownership into your operators helps to increase retention of these employees. So there's, again, a lot of indirect effects that you can be having. So just some things to point out here. And with that, we're going to get into the exciting stuff. So, Brian, I'm going to let you walk through just some of these examples that we have illustrated. Then we're going to have a quick video. I know, just time check, we've got about 20 minutes left, so I do want to make sure that um, we can address
Sure.
everything.
Yeah.
And again, if we have any follow-up, we can always do that.
Yes, so we mocked up a few examples here. I think the first one that people have be familiar with: blank screens, no streams, camera disconnects. This is where the last thing you want is for an operator to be confronted with this, or you have the scenario where no video is coming through, there's no connectivity, and in some ways this might be one of the worst case scenarios because you don't even know where to begin. Is the camera offline? Is the network down? And so, as Aaron will show you in the demo video, there is some additional detail provided when there's like a hard outage of this case that helps you start your troubleshooting faster. And then obstruction, tilt, tampering, this happens all the time. I think much of this business is involves exterior, outdoor cameras. That's where the biggest market has been for remote guarding, and so cameras outside can get affected by all kinds of things in the outdoor elements. And I think, again, we've all seen tons of scenarios over the years where, nothing malicious happened. The cameras were just altered, or like the truck example here is the perfect one where, the technically everything about the camera network is perfect. It's all in focus. It's looking at the right thing. But some idiot parked a big truck or a shipping container in front of the camera, and it can't see what it's meant to look at. And so that's one where if you're not doing some kind of dynamic scene change detection, you would never detect that weakness or that deficiency with just network pings or simple things like that. So this lets before an incident happens that you're not going to be able to see what's going on.
And I think also with this, sorry to jump in and interrupt, but I think with part of this, it is when you have a camera that was moved maintenance wise, and there could be a
Hmm.
disconnect in, breakdown in the communication to let the monitoring center know that, hey, this camera has been relocated completely,
Hmm.
or we've replaced this camera. I mean, those are important things to then kind of tie back into and make sure that you have the analytics set up in the proper way on these devices. Listen, Brian, Actuate provides a fantastic AI and analytic, but a lot of devices rely a lot on having a stable horizon to be
Right.
able to have proper detection. So things
Yep.
like tilt, while it could be fairly minor, could have a pretty large impact in the way that the analytics are working on these cameras. And when that's what you're relying on for the detection of incidents and events, you're you're creating a big risk here without having something to
Yes.
protect you.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, Image quality, this again, spider webs is a great example. Rain, condensation, things fogging up a lens in dirty or dusty environments. You can just get, things that accumulate on a lens over time. Cameras that are in coastal locations are definitely prone to getting that buildup on the lens. And so we can detect when there's some kind of loss of focus, loss of contrast, or other things that are preventing the image from being sharp and optimally analyzable. And then uh, this one here is an example of network issues that could cause stream integrity, where you get that jitter, latency, failure to load, blockiness, pixelization of the image. In many cases, this is a scenario where the camera itself is working properly, but there's a network integrity issue, something that's preventing these frames from getting through. And if you're familiar with how codecs work, H.264, H.265, any kind of progressive codec that sends iframes and then p frames. Many times, the iframes are the full image, and the p frames are the deltas. So if there's, if you're already on like a low bandwidth or high latency network, you sometimes have a tendency to want to reduce the number of iframes to reduce overall bandwidth. Well, if an iframe is lost, then basically every successive p frame doesn't have that reference image to build off of. And so a tiny network blip can cause several seconds of a video outage. And of course, inevitably, just those few seconds when you had no good video coming through is when something was happening at the scene that we wanted to capture or analyze. So it's important to detect those things early on so that we can, again, alert the operators and rectify the situation before an incident happens.
No frame left behind. All right. So here's where we have the video. I'm gonna kind of talk through this. There's no audio associated with it. I'm going to rely on my co-organizers to make sure that this is displaying properly. So again, everybody that is familiar with the Immix interface, this is what we call the alarm monitor. This is where your operators are going to kind of be managing any of these events that are coming in. And you'll see these in the patrol queue with this VCH tag. And then you see a little bit more information, and this is what Brian was alluding to, where you've got a bit more context. Was it the field of view that was changed? Was there a video loss? Was there a blurred field of view? These things help to provide a bit more context that help the operator to then figure out, how do I triage this? How should I escalate this? So from here, once they click into the event, this will be the site monitor, and you will see this image load. Again, just for anybody maybe not as familiar with Immix, you've got any notes that might be relevant for the operator. So, any recent incidents, any devices that they might know are offline, let's say there's been a VPN issue and parts of the system have been offline. I've seen that where there's maybe a joint responsibility in who's providing some of the cameras here. But on this left-hand side of the screen is where you're going to have the footage that was assessed by Actuate for this VCH check. And then on the right-hand side is where you're going to have the live video feed load. So pretty much, provided your response time is close, and depending on the issue, that might look pretty similar. It might look basically the same. So you will also see, as part of the audit trail, this information that comes in, and you'll see the additional context here. So video loss, no video, blurred view, blur, connection failed, field of view. So there can be a few different ones, but these are kind of the primary ones that you would likely see. And from here, we're going to click through just a couple of examples. So of course, with a no video, you're not going to have a video that loads. That's likely going to be a black screen. And then here's an example of a blur. And you've got that come through. Connection failed is going to be very similar to that video loss. And as we go through this, I'll just touch on a couple of other things. You can assign a script to some of these so that that helps the operator to then figure out what actions should be taken. And then here is where you have a field of view changed. And so this one, of course, has been flipped. Something that is new that we have implemented here is when there is, especially for things like scene change, as it's defined here, this field of view has been changed. Having that reference shot in such a way where it can fully be popped out and the operator can make a better assessment. This was driven to make their processing more effective, more efficient. And so they just click on this and it will pop out the full size reference shot and display it side by side. And it's difficult to see in this image just because it's white text and we've got the sky here. But it does indicate that this is the reference shot versus here is the audit footage that was assessed. And that is consistent for people who have been using Immix, but just that is something you implemented with this solution. is that reference shot comparison and that ability to pop it out. And then of course, again, any of the other tools, closing the event, having those instant reports that might fire out off the backside of it, having any of the, bear with me, gotta exit out of, having any of the audit trail is going to be helpful. And we are going to share some better examples. I just want to go back to full screen for you guys. All right. So, like I mentioned, here's kind of that reference shot comparison side by side. And you can see where this is housed. So you're going to have that little image that will then pop out. It will have that red box around it. So that is, again, that consistency of the Immix interface of that reference shot. The configuration, like I was talking about, is very simple. So when you go and you are enabling these plans and actions onto a site, onto particular devices, you are able to even go in and select the specific cameras. Here's where you would choose whether or not you want that to be raised to the operator or not. And you have the ability to name these, however you would like. So again, if there are things that you want raised, that could be part of the action name. If there are critical cameras, interior cameras, where you might want to have those called out a little bit differently, you can create those specific actions and name them accordingly. And then, of course, have the cameras linked, and you can select these right from Immix with kind of the default setting of everything that Actuate is able to offer with scene change, with the image quality, with the stream quality already enabled on it. So it's going to automatically check for all those things. Going back and reviewing the events, this is pretty straightforward as well. It's a slightly different interface for anybody who's used Auto Patrol. This is a bit more of what this looks like. So as we develop that solution with Actuate, this will start to look more and more familiar, but you'll have these different sites and you'll be able to see the total of VCH checks that were provided during this time frame that was selected, any that were raised, and if there was any issue with, a timeout, with the camera streams timing out themselves, then that's where you would also see this information. And then from here, you can also filter and see which ones are healthy, which ones are unhealthy and raised, which ones are unhealthy and logged. So if you wanted to start getting more specific into that review, this offers that full flexibility of being able to sort through and hone in a lot more specifically on that information. And you can see these different results when they were executed, the scheduled title. So again, as we kind of go back to how you set up those action plans and those names, you're able to see that a bit more in depth as well. Looking at the reports that are available, and looking at the time, I want us to be able to answer some Q&A, so I'm going to skip over these pretty quickly. You've got your usage summary. You can then break it out by kind of the full camera health report, a more detailed report that allows you to see, the timestamps. But these unhealthy and camera health reports give you that summary of the total cameras that were assessed site by site, the healthy versus unhealthy breakdown. And then, of course, the camera health report delivers everything, both healthy and unhealthy. And then the unhealthy camera report is just filtered down to those that are unhealthy. And you've got the breakdown by site. And so with that, just to kind of wrap things up, we've got one more poll for you guys. And we want to understand how this would factor into your service model as you provide it today. Whether it's something you might include already, if it would be an option, if it would be ad hoc, it's kind of built in already if it helps to justify that premium price point, or if it's something you're kind of having to do because you have to do it for those various reasons that Brian and I pointed out, but maybe you haven't monetized it. And we will give those a chance to stabilize. That looks like we are good. Perfect. All right, so just to wrap things up fully, you know, visual camera health, VCH, goes back to having that operational insurance policy, making sure that your cameras are online and viewable, usable within Immix, reducing your risks, making sure that you do have a more consistent service. So for people who are saying they don't currently monetize it, this helps to create a service offering that does have that consistency, that does have some of those, you know, guardrails outlined on what it does, what it doesn't do, the reports associated with it, the events that can be delivered, that help you to actually curate and build a service around this, whether it's to justify a premium price point or if it's something that you would actually sell. So that is kind of the wrap up here before we get to Q&A. Brian, anything you wanted to add?
No. I mean, I think you did a good job. Of course, one thing that I think is worth adding is that another thing I like about visual camera health is that it's applicable really to 100% of the cameras at a site. So it's a great way to not only provide, you know, extended awareness and extended services around the cameras that are being used for real time, you know, theft and vandalism prevention, real time monitoring. But frankly, it's applicable to indoor cameras and other cameras as well. Presumably, the customer has all these cameras on site for a reason, and they expect them to work. And so, I've also found this can be a good way for central station operators to, you know, upsell additional services into an account because you can attach VCH to a lobby camera. And if something happens, you know, to that camera, I think it's just as important to know about it in real time as it is to an exterior one. So it's a good revenue, you know, growth opportunity as well.
Absolutely, totally agree with you. Um, Jason and Tina in the background, do we have some questions? I know we
We
are
do.
just right at time.
We do. Can you hear me, Aaron?
Yes,
All
yep.
right. There's several. I'm going to pick out kind of the most pertinent ones. I'll give you $1,000 if you can guess what the first one involves. What
When is it available?
what does the pricing structure look like? Is it per
Okay.
stream? Is there a minimum number of streams needed?
It is per stream. There is no minimum number of streams needed. So we've done a lot to try and make sure that this is competitively priced, and we are right under $2 per camera per month. So again, we wanted to make sure that this was scalable.
Let's see here. Okay, a good one here is how does the AI deal with rainstorms or heavy fog? I know it's something we've been discussing. This actually comes from, ironically, somebody in the U.S., not the U.K., but we've been talking with some of our U.K. folks about the
Seattle?
rainstorms and heavy fogs. But yeah.
Yeah, great question. So it really would depend on the extent that those weather incidents are altering the field of view. So we've anticipated those scenarios for sure, and built in, you know, AI to detect those kinds of things and not generate false alarms every time it rains. But like fog in particular, if you had a scenario where the scene was effectively heavily occluded by fog and that's all you saw, that would generate an alert. I think that'd be one where the operators could probably clear it out, or depending on how you have your contract set up with your customer, that's also a good opportunity where you have the ability to keep some of those cameras up live or check in on them more regularly, to make sure that the weather which is out of your control doesn't totally preclude you from providing service to that customer. So it depends. Generally, if it's moderate weather, we won't flag it. If it's extreme weather that's preventing the system from working, that would get flagged.
Perfect. Jason, I know you said we have a few more questions, but for
Yep.
anybody who needs to jump off, I just wanted to let everybody know that this is going to be available really tomorrow. So if this is something that you guys are interested in, feel free to reach out to this email address, reach out to your account director, and we can get the ball rolling on getting any of the necessary paperwork set up, so that we can get this added for you. But this is kind of your first sneak peek at it.
So I'll continue with a couple more questions. How often are the checks being completed? And is there a way for an operator handling the alarm to switch off once reported, or will the alerts keep coming in?
These are performed 4 times per day. They are not set up so that they are done at a specific interval, let's say, so that it does add a little bit of randomization, which is beneficial in several ways. And just for time reasons, I won't go into each of those different ways. But can it be switched off by the operator? No, but it is something that could be escalated to like a management who helps to do the administration of Immix, should they need to take action to change that schedule or any of that, and pause it.
Let's see. I think I've covered them all. There were several that I was just able to answer individually directly back to the people. I'm just making sure that I didn't miss anything. Another one about false name. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I was just gonna say, we will also make sure that the video is available to you guys, those who joined. Really appreciate the time that you guys spent. Sorry we went a little bit long, but if you have any other questions that come up, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are happy to answer any of your questions. It's something we're really excited about. And Brian, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today and all the time that you spent with me on building this.
My pleasure. Thanks for having us. This was a lot of fun.
Wonderful.
Right.
Jason, if we are good.
We're good. Yes, we've covered them all. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate the time, and we will make sure that you have these resources available to you.